Hi there and welcome to this video on how to try out and use new library functions. Now, I don't exaggerate when I say that in terms of the impact that this can have on your programming, this is quite possibly the most important video that I've recorded yet. Certainly I've realised with my students that we jump from using very simple library functions like gfx write or writeline, where there's just one argument, one parameter that we're passing into the brackets and everything seems fine. And then we jump into some functions where there's all sorts of different parameters and it's like a car crash. So it's about looking at sort of how can we find a method that's going to help us sort of actually try these things out. So we're going to go through that a little bit today. I've got a little app here called Try New Function, and the idea is we're going to have a look at a function with probably quite a few different arguments that you may or may not have come across before, and we're going to try that and sort of see, well, how do we actually go about figuring out how to use it in the first place, and hopefully you can apply the same method to any of your functions as long as you do a little bit of research, if you like, first. So we'll figure out how to do this. So I've got an app here, Try New Function, and I'd like to try to create a rectangle or a square with this. So I've gone and had a look in my ELC functions, okay, and I recognise enough from there that this is to do with graphics. So I've come down into the graphics section here, and I found myself something here called GFX 2D rectangle, okay, which sounds about the sort of thing that I'd need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that and open it in a new tab in my browser. Obviously if you're not able to do that, just open it anyway, but I've just got this and I'm just going to have a quick look at what's going on. Now there's three important bits that we're sort of looking for when we use our graphics here, or sorry, when we use any function. Is first off is how to use it. So we've got this section here. This is very important. We're going to use this as like a template in our code, and we can see it just gives us the function call effectively. So it's the name of the function, and in brackets each of the different things that we are meant to put into those brackets to make it work. And then underneath here in this little table is the explanation of what each of these things is. So as an example, in this case, xpos, okay, here is the horizontal position of the top left corner of the rectangle that is to be drawn, okay, and 0 is the left edge, okay, so that's fine. And ypos, okay, is the vertical position. So if I use xpos and ypos together, that gives me a set of coordinates from the left and the top of the screen that tells me where the top corner of our rectangle will be, etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, before I go through the rest of them, I'm just going to take a copy of this. Okay, I'm going to go back to my app. Okay, and I'm going to paste this in. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to just try and get this working with values. I'm not going to worry about variables just yet. I'm just going to think about values. And the other thing I need to do is have a quick look through the example code. Now in this case this gets quite sort of complicated, this example code. This is all sorts of for loops and things. I'm trying to find the bit where I'm actually doing this. There we go. So we've got the GFX rectangle, and we can see I've got the 2D rectangle there, and underneath I've got GFX show, so I can see that in this case I do need to perhaps use this in order to actually display that. So I'm also going to just copy that and paste that into my app as well. Right, so let's see if we can get this working then. So xpos, as we've said, was the position the top of from the left hand side of the top left of the rectangle. So maybe I'm going to put that in as 100, and I'll do the same with ypos as well. Now width and height hopefully would be self-explanatory for a rectangle, but let's just check. So we go back into our thing here. Okay, so width is the, well, it says width of the circle, okay, in this case, but I think that's just a mistake on the website. So this is 2D rectangle, so we can assume that we actually mean the rectangle and the height of the rectangle. Okay, so we've got width, let's say 150, and let's say height, let's say 50, so changes it. Okay, now we're into red, green and blue, so let's find out what these are. So red is the amount of red in the required colour. Okay, so in this case 0 is no red, 255 is full red. Okay, right, so I've got a value between 0 and 255 as to how much red is in the colour. So if I want my rectangle to be red, then I would make this 255 and I'd make green 0 and blue 0. So I'm actually going to try that out just to sort of see that it works. So make this 255, green to 0, blue to 0. Right, so let's check out what fill flag's meant to do. So fill flag is true if the shape is to be filled with colour, or false, okay, or 0, okay, if just the outline is to be drawn. Okay, so true or false. So fill flag, true is filled, false is not filled, so just the outline. So I'm going to go back to my thing here and I'm going to type in false. Okay, in my case I just want the outline. And at this point, oh sorry, missed that off, that should have been there. My bad. Right, so we've got that there, so false is my last parameter to this function, and now I'm ready to give it a go. So save source and check. Okay. Let's play that, and hopefully, yep, there we go. So we've got ourselves a little drawn rectangle. Now that's really the first stage. Now, you know, we've now understand how to actually use the code. We can maybe play around with it a little bit. We could sort of say, well, what happens if I do change this to true, just so that we understand it a little bit better. Just little changes. Yeah, so very quickly done, less than 10 seconds. I mean, and we've sort of found, oh yeah, that's okay, so that works like that, that's fine, yeah, cool. So maybe I'll need that at some point. Yeah, so what if I set these to be 0? You know, where does that leave my rectangle? So we have a go at that. And we just make sure that we're quite happy that we understand what's going on. So we can see 0, 0 has placed it there, that's fine. Okay, so that's the first stage. Obviously then potentially we can start thinking, well, which of these values in here should we be using variables for instead? You know, perhaps over the course of our program, maybe we want things to change. Maybe I'm going to want my rectangle to move or appear to move. So do I then, you know, want to sort of change some of these values, maybe the coordinates, etc., you know, as I'm sort of showing and hiding these graphics. All sorts of things we need to think about, but basically I just wanted to make sure that we're clear about how to go about using a function that we've not used before. And the key to it really was to sort of say, well, first off, we use this as a little template, okay, and we put that into our code. We need to understand what each of these things are, so I opened this in a new tab so that I was able to go through each thing and actually understand it, and I put values in for them, and then I can start thinking about variables, and I can start thinking about changing some of these values and thoroughly understand how to use the function to its best of the ability for the particular program I'm trying to do. So I hope that helps with trying out new functions.